You're listening to another great podcast in the MyMac Podcasting Network.
TechFan Podcast number 501. I'm Tim Robertson, joined by David Cohen. And we're still recuperating, David, from that massive 500th episode celebration that we did.
What a party that was.
Man, whew.
Yeah, 3 days in the desert.
Well, I mean, you're the one that picked the venue. I mean,
I know, and we don't even have a desert here in the UK.
I know. We met in the middle in Saudi Arabia.
We do have a town called Scunthorpe that's kind of like the desert.
I like the name.
Scunthorpe. Yeah, and it's spelt the way you think it is.
It sounds like it would. There's a Lynchburg here in the U.S. I'm like, why? Really? Lynchburg? Couldn't.
Well, I mean, we have there are websites with a whole load of the.
Well, there's a Hell, Michigan.
Yeah, there's a whole load of dirty place names in the UK.
Kind of redundant, to be honest.
There's a place that's probably about 25 miles from here, out in the country, called Penistone, and it's spelt the way you would think Penistone would be spelt. And you look at it. In fact, the first time my wife saw it, when she first came up here to live with me, we drove through it, and she literally couldn't stop laughing for half an hour. So, there you go.
I just did a search for funny city names. The first one is Hell.
Hell, yeah.
Hell. It's Michigan. It's not too far away from me. There's actually a Batman? Huh. I guess there's a Batman city. That's weird.
Do you think everybody talks like this there?
Truth or Consequences, New Mexico? Soda Springs, Idaho. I gave up soda, so I'd get kicked out.
Yeah. You gave it completely?
Oh, yeah. I haven't had any soda in 2.5 years now.
Well, I remember you stopped drinking the sugared stuff, but I thought you were still on diet.
No, I gave up everything like 2.5 years ago. It's fun.
So here's the I've always drunk diet soda, but I do like soda, and we have the Soda Stream here in the house.
Yeah, you've talked about it.
Yeah, and it's one of my favourite things. But I found out just before Christmas, apparently there are some people who say that the Soda Stream doesn't create the right kind of bubbles, and that actually if you get from I think it's Arc or something like this, they make a soda machine that makes bubbles that are more like you get in a can, which are bigger. And they say small bubbles makes it taste sharp and pointy, and bigger bubbles is much more like a regular soda. And of course, those new machines would be, if I were to buy one of those, and it works exactly the same way as the one I have, would be a couple of £100. So I'm not doing that. But it does make you wonder, and it just seems like every.
Fish aren't meant to be in a box, kid.
Sorry, I had to play Bubbles from Finding Nemo.
It does make you wonder if every single thing that gets invented, then somebody has to come along and say, "Oh, that's crap. I've got a better one, but here's more money."
Yep. Well, I mean, I like Bubbles too because I drank the sparkling ice classic lemonade flavored sparkling water. 0 sugar with vitamins and antioxidants.
So you've not given up soda?
No, it's not. It's water.
You think it comes out of the ground with the carbon dioxide in it?
Yeah, but they don't.
They make it like that. It's just basically soda.
No, it's not.
I mean, that's
soda
all soda is. All soda is carbonated water and a flavouring.
And a whole bunch of shit in it.
Yeah, but you haven't given up soda if you're drinking flavoured sparkling water.
I have. It's not soda at all. But
sure, it's not.
Are you? Have you calmed down yet from the excitement of CES?
I slept through it. I think most people did. I think even the people there slept through it.
You and I texted back and forth a little bit about this, but who the hell wants a transparent display? What's the point? I don't understand why this is. So they're just grasping at straws. Like, oh my God, how can we get someone to buy a new TV?
Yeah. Well, no, but it's standard. It's standard capitalist practice. It's you sell somebody something, and then just like with my SodaStream, you then tell them, "Oh yeah, that thing you've got, that's no good anymore. We've come up with something better, so you need to replace it. Oh, by the way, because this has new technology, it's going to cost a lot more money." And this is what TV companies have done. Is they've basically said, right, everyone's now spent whatever they've spent on their TVs. And of course, as well, prices have come down. We've talked about that in the past. Now, how can we get somebody to drop, well over $1,000 on a new TV? We need to tell them that what they have is terrible, and they need to be watching it this way. And this is one of the ideas they've come up with, which is a see-through TV. What I find interesting is they spent the last 10 years telling us that every year's panel improvements has got deeper blacks, better contrast. You really need to have the difference between those searing high-definition colours, and an absolute inky, hell-like Michigan black, right? And now they said, oh, yeah, you don't need contrast at all. Actually, what you need to be able to do is see light coming through your TV, like it's a window.
Yeah. I like
that contrast doesn't matter anymore at all.
I watched a couple of the demos from the spokesmen from Samsung and LG, who were the two big ones for the transparencies. Yeah. One is, we're the first of this one, and the other one was, we're the first of that one, and who cares? They both have this system that a black screen will come up behind the TV if you actually want to watch TV on it. I'm like, well, what else are you doing with it? And they will show like... well, look, it can look like a fish tank. Where you just get a fish tank. I mean, why would I spend $8,000 so I can have a faux fish tank?
Faux fish tank.
And well, it's transparent so you can see what's behind it. There's a wall behind it. That's what's behind it, a wall. I don't want to see my wall. I want to see whatever's on the screen. Because if you take a transparent
TV and put it in front of a window, it makes it look even worse than if you put it in front of a wall, because the light coming through it.
They came up with
like
cool
they don't
technology.
know how physics works.
Well, they came up with a cool technology, but it's solving a problem nobody had.
Yeah, and not only that as well. If we look at the announcement that took a lot of the heat out of CES this week, which was the availability of the Vision Pro.
Yep.
The Vision Pro has high-definition screens right in front of your eyes. And they've put a lot of technology in there to allow you to see behind your what they're projecting in front of your eyes without it actually having light come through your eyes, because they're goggles that aren't see-through. And the reason they've done that is because they know if you make them see-through, the picture's not as good. They could have done that. They could have had some sort of projection system over a view of the actual real world, but they didn't want to do that because they knew it makes the vision suck.
Yep.
I have a pair of those AR-style glasses that show video, and you know what they come with? They come with a set of blinds that go over the glasses, so that if you're in a bright space, it blocks out the light from behind, so you can actually see what you're watching. So you're absolutely right. This is a solution to a problem nobody has, and in fact, the solution, the $8,000 solution to the problem, creates more problems.
I don't understand why they would come up with something that, other than the super tech people who want the latest and greatest and to show off to their buddies, but won't actually use it because it's a terrible experience, why anybody would want this. A hotel, fine. You get this big display in a hotel where it has, or maybe an airport or something, where it's displaying information that you can still see through. But this isn't like it's holographic or something. You can walk through it.
No.
It doesn't follow you around. It's a giant screen that you can see through. I do not see the point at all. I could see it if they were small and they were used as like displays for like, hey, turn left here, or for information that changes. Hey, this track is down. Now you want to go to track 17. Something like that.
But the problem is we can already do that without
Exactly.
spending that sort of money on the display, because heads-up displays in cars and things like that, which use mirrors and prisms and things like that, much more convenient to use than these displays, and a lot cheaper, already exist. So I'll tell you why. It's because in a CES demo, it looks cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they've literally done it for PR purposes. But what I don't understand is why these companies don't do what the car companies do, which is introduce something as a concept, but then say, "Well, you can't buy it. It's just a concept." Right?
No,
Gauge the demand.
Yes.
And then decide whether you're going to manufacture it, rather than churn out a few thousand of them that are going to sit in warehouses and end up being thrown away.
Here's what I think is going to be a big comeback in the next 2 years, and they had a couple of them like this, and it's the only things that got my attention, and that when it comes to the televisions, anyways. And
those personal waffle makers. Yeah?
Yes, well, that goes without saying, David. I mean, televisions is furniture again.
Yeah,
I think that is ripe for a comeback. I think people are a little tired of a big screen hanging on a wall. You know, the original televisions up through the 80s and 90s, they were, in the 80s and 90s, they were, dark gray boxes that you would put on something else. But before that, the television itself was a piece of furniture. You might have one with a record player in it and giant big speakers on each side, and they were really, the Art Deco look, the ones that had these skinny little legs and a round body, but the TV was still, rectangular.
Yeah.
Those were cool looking. You see that stuff every now and then on Facebook or eBay or something, and you're like, oh, that was really cool looking. I think that kind of funky, postmodern type of look is going to make a big comeback, and I think more people are going to be interested in decorating their house where they can move the TV wherever they want rather than having to stick it on the one wall, because that's the only wall that doesn't have windows and you can put a big screen TV on it, rather than a smaller one with its own legs that's maybe height adjustable but looks cool, is a cool looking thing, rather than just a big flat nothing on your wall. Think about one that could have a big screen TV, say 52 inches, but on each side is smaller screens that don't do anything unless you want them to. Maybe one is a music controller. Maybe one is, I don't know, but just different, something different.
Many
one
of us
could be a smart home controller.
Exactly. I was just about to say, many of us have like an Amazon device or a Google device with a screen on it in our kitchen, dining rooms, bedrooms, that sort of thing. So you could build that into the TV.
But not part of the main display, so you could be watching TV and then this pops up. Where it's automatic. If your doorbell rings, that little screen on the TV, next to the big screen, it's not part of it, shows up what's on the doorbell.
Exactly. And just in the same way you were talking about information, I mean, many people have kind of dashboards that show the weather for the day, the news headlines. You often see this in office buildings and things like that. You could have that in your room. I know a very popular hobbyist project is to build those smart mirrors with a Raspberry Pi, where they put a display behind a mirror.
Yep.
So you can see it through the mirror, and you're shaving and brushing your teeth in the morning and what have you, doing your makeup, and you've got the headlines, you've got the weather, you might have
you can have that on your television,
sort of, and you could have that as a side of your television. That would be,
or your phone rings, you're watching TV, it just shows up on one of those smaller screens on the TV.
And also as well, if you want to do a video call, you can do it on a screen at the side of the TV.
Yeah, so your boss's nose isn't the size of your head in front of you.
Yeah, exactly.
See, all that kind of stuff comes not from one that hangs on a wall, but that's a functional piece of furniture.
Yeah, and I remember back in the 80s, in particular, Bang & Olufsen used to do very stylish TVs that they had a design aesthetic to them that made them desirable for the way they looked as well as what they did. What we have now with TVs mostly is a big flat rectangle, and in fact the design choice has been to get as much screen space and as little bezel as possible on everything. And so they have nothing you can see, and I can see an aesthetic going for that. I must admit, this is a bit of an annoying thing that annoys me whenever I read any review of anything nowadays. The tech press, they always talk about the width of the bezels.
Yeah.
and they, it's got, the bezels are too wide. And it's just like, who cares? Nobody cares. Because you might pick it up and as a reviewer go, oh, the bezel's too wide. Look, they're an inch, something like that. Once you're actually using the thing and you're looking at what's on the screen,
you're not looking at the bezel. Yeah.
The bezels disappear. It doesn't matter if you've got a laptop with big bezels or a tablet with big bezels. In fact, with a tablet, I'd say bezels probably make sense because it gives you something to hold on to the thing without having your fingers over the screen.
So I think that's going to be, at least I hope it is, because let's bring a little bit of style back to technology. I've been complaining about phones forever that they're all the same, Android, and it's just size and definition of the screen, but otherwise they're very boring from an aesthetic standpoint. And I don't care how much glass and how much titanium and all that shit, because we all put cases around them anyways. As a point of fact, an iPhone flew out of a jet at like 30,000 feet, landed in... It still worked fine. There was nothing wrong with it.
It worked fine, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't because of Apple's craftsmanship. It was because of the case it was in.
So you know what? That here's another aside here. I think I mentioned a couple of months ago that my company decided not to renew the phones this year, and so I've been stuck with an old iPhone 13 mini. And because it's already got marks on it, and it's got scratches on the display, but to be honest with you can't see them when the display is on. So
yeah, I've got one on my phone too.
Yeah, so I decided I was going to use it without a case, and so I've been literally carrying it just the phone.
It's amazing, raw dog,
amazing how different the iPhones. It makes you realise how much mass and bulk the cases add, even a thin one. Yeah. And it really is much nicer without a case. In fact, I'm thinking to myself, the next one I buy, next one I get, I won't put a case on it just because it's so much nicer. I might put a skin or something like that on it to at least give it an outside protection from the scratches. But I'm willing to risk dropping it.
Yeah, well,
and cracking it. So.
It does feel a lot smaller in your pocket.
Oh, it's
or in your hand.
Amazing. Yeah.
So that was CES. It's all about the televisions. There was a couple other things that were announced, but almost nothing that anyone listening to this cares.
Well, so yeah, the other thing is everything was AI, and everything was stupid AI because let's face it, there isn't really much clever AI, and definitely the sort of AI you put into things at CES.
I hate calling it AI. It's not AI.
Yeah, it's not AI. Well, the problem is a lot, and I suspect this is what was going on, is a lot of people were saying, oh, if it does anything algorithmically, we'll tell them it's AI, even if it isn't. So if you have a fridge that keeps track of how old your milk is, and then has a display on the front that says, oh, but you might want to buy more milk, that's AI. That's not a computer, that's AI. Just because the industry has decided that everything's got to be branded AI this year, otherwise nobody will buy it. And I don't want AI on my fridge. I don't even want a computer on my fridge, but I certainly don't want AI on my fridge.
I don't want to pay for AI or a computer on my fridge. If the choice is this one for $1,000 or that one for $1,000, but the one over here on my right has a screen that shows me if something's expired, and the other one doesn't, I'll probably get the one with the screen.
Yeah, it's the same price.
Yeah,
but if it's
that's what I'm saying. I don't want to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I don't want to pay $1,000 for a fridge, so I would probably get the much, much cheaper one that doesn't have any of that stuff on, and just does what a fridge is meant to do, which is keep things cool.
Yep.
And I'll worry about how old the stuff inside is.
Yeah, it's
use the old sniff test.
That was CES, and
here's an idea. Now I would pay for this if it was a fridge that had an AI artificial nose, so that instead of me having to sniff the milk and decide whether it's off, I put it in front of the fridge's nose, and the fridge smells it and tells me whether it thinks it's off. Now that I would pay for, because then I don't have to run the risk of smelling milk that's gone bad.
I mean, that would be kind of nice.
It would, yeah. You wave a plate of 2-day-old steak underneath it and go, will this kill me if I eat it? Because I'm hungry and there's nothing else here, and I don't want to go out. Now this is what we need. We need to be consulting with these companies and giving them real technology ideas. I'm
looking at The Verge's Best of CES.
Yeah.
Best wearables, the EV Ring.
They went on. In fact, I read their article, and it kind of came across like they were paid by that company to.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm like, well, who wants that?
It's absolutely well, look, smart rings are a thing. The is it Oura?
I don't know.
Smart rings are for people who don't want to wear a smartwatch and yet still want to have a little bit of health tracking, sleep tracking, something like that. There's a market for that, and I know that Oura in particular were very good at promoting them to celebrities, so that there was a whole Instagram thing a couple of years ago about celebrities who were wearing these smart rings. But the reality is that most people buy a watch instead of a ring because it's more functional and they can see stuff on it. But there's a market for that. But this new one, to me, seems to be identical to all the others. So I really don't understand why The Verge got so excited over it. And reading their story, I read the entire thing. I couldn't see how it was different from any of the others, apart from the fact that they're a new startup and it did come across.
I missed this one. I don't know how I missed this one. Kohler, wow, this one should have been product of the year so far. It's a $10,000 e-ink toilet.
An e-ink toilet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Voice control, a bidet,
of course,
speakers, and motion-activated seat.
Right. So where does the e-ink come in?
It's wrapped in e-ink panels with 10 different shifting designs.
So it's like a Predator.
Yeah.
You walk into the bathroom and it disappears.
Yes.
Where's the toilet gone? It's honey, have you got the remote for the toilet? I can't find it again. What? Because nobody in the history of the world has looked at a toilet and gone, you know what I need? I need to be able to redecorate that on a whim.
It's a rectangle though. I guess they didn't get the whole human anatomy part of college.
From plenty of the hotels I stayed in, is high-end designer toilets are often rectangular,
and they're terrible.
Yeah,
but they didn't have ink, I mean, or speakers. Now, what I don't want is a microphone in there. That would be bad.
Well. But
no.
I mean, what they're trying to do there is they're trying to say, well, some people like to listen to music in the bathroom, so let's put the speakers in the toilet. Which, I mean, most of the noises come from the toilet. Not only are they not terribly pleasant, you can play your bubbles thing again if you want.
It's got voice control.
But when you hear the noises that come from a flushing toilet, you don't think, oh, that sounds sonically so exciting. It sounds boomy and wet, and so the idea of your music coming from the toilet I don't think is a great idea. And not only that as well, we all know that everybody who wants to listen to music or anything like that on the toilet uses their phone. What they need is a sanitizer for your phone on the toilet. See, again, we've got all the ideas here. If you had something so that when you finish using the bathroom, you put your phone in it and it would sanitize it before you left the bathroom, having used it on the toilet, I think that would be a gangbuster seller. But e-ink, definitely not.
A lot of people are talking about the Rabbit R1.
It's sold out as well, but I must say, all the articles I read about it didn't really explain what it did and how it did it. They just kind of said it.
No one really knows what it is.
It's an AI for your apps.
It's a 2.88-inch color touchscreen on the front.
Yeah. But
what does it do?
Well, it's an AI for your apps. Is what is the best description I could find of it. So, in some way, it uses AI to get information from your other apps and display them on this thing. And I just look at it and I just think, well, what? Why not? Again, we've talked about this before. It's competing with your phone, where all the apps live, and you can see all the information from your apps on your phone. And if you want to see 4 or 5 different apps at once, you can do widgets that will let you do that. So what is this
on a tiny little screen?
On a tiny little screen in a device that you have to charge and carry separately. And plus there's a whole AI cloud thing, which means that whatever apps it's showing, presumably they're looking at all your data.
Sounds safe.
I didn't understand it, but the thing is apparently it sold out straight away. And
well, yeah, because it's $200 and there's a lot of dumb people out there. I don't. It's weird. Yeah, and they got Best Gadget.
Yeah, but nobody's explained what it does. I mean, I think this is the problem with CES now. I mean, it's always been a bit.
It looks cool. Don't get me wrong, dude. But yeah. I don't know if I don't know what it does.
But have you never noticed though that people go to see all these different news organisations go to CES and they all report on the same 7 or 8 things. Nobody, apart from the e-ink toilet, which I've got to admit I'd not come across before, but mostly everybody reports on the same 7 or 8 things. This year it was the transparent TV. It was the R1 thing. Quite a lot of people covered the Hyundai car that could go sideways.
Yeah.
All the AI stuff that got covered. I mean, certainly Samsung's AI stuff got covered to death. Right, and it's all everyone's reporting about the same stuff, and you think this is CES, it's full of literally thousands of booths with all sorts of different things, and yet everyone's reporting the same thing. And you look at that, and the cynical person thinks, oh, those are the ones who are giving out the best gifts or fronting up the most hotel rooms to get coverage.
Well, as a company, MyMac.com covered Macworld for many years, and for many years we had the biggest presence at the show. Now, we never did best of or anything like that because, well, it's stupid. But we always had, articles and pictures and video bringing you a lot of the stuff that was at Macworld. And there were times where you're talking to someone that, all they really cared about was, were we giving away awards, something that they could put in their booth. And I never played that game. I was like, no, we don't do that. We're just covering it so our readers or our listeners or our viewers can look at it and make up their own mind if this is something. We give them, 30-second, 40-second soundbite on the video stuff that we used to do, or in the podcasts, because we do a lot of, in-booth interviews with these companies. You go back, 10 years and listen to some of the MyMac.com podcasts that we did back then, and we covered a lot of stuff. I don't see any of that kind of coverage at any of these big websites.
This is the problem. It's all the same articles about the same things. Or
if they do video, it's like, hey, we wanted to find who has the smallest screens. And it's like, nobody gives a shit. Why don't you go to the booth and actually show the stuff that you're seeing in the booth, and not just the big LG or Samsung or ThinkBook, but go to the smaller booths that nobody is covering, that's making small little products that could actually benefit people, that is affordable and looks cool. Tell us about those things, because that was always the thing I was interested in.
Yeah, we've mocked the e-ink toilet, but actually, at least that's something a bit different. I see the Verge's coverage. It didn't make their main coverage. It was a TikTok video and an Instagram video, right? And the problem, and this is another problem. The Verge is particularly guilty of this, which is they don't put everything on their website.
No,
they put it on all sorts of different places, and then they'll just put a little link to it with a couple of words on, right? And maybe I'm interested in understanding the e-ink toilet, but I don't want to go to Instagram, and I don't want to watch a TikTok video. I actually want words in an article, like all the other coverage they do. And they decide, and it, it just then that it's about them pumping their social media engagement rather than actually informing the consumer. And that's one of the things that kind of irritates me. And then when I go to the BBC, which is a mainstream news organisation, and they've basically covered the same CES products that everyone else has, I just think, well, what's the point? What is the point?
They're all covering the same shit.
It's interesting. We lost the consumer what's the game show that finally died a death this last year?
I don't know.
The thing that replaced Comdex. A big game show in the middle of the year. Anyway, they finally announced that they weren't going to do it anymore. I have to wonder, with a CES? Is that going to go the same way?
No, the tech world has to have something like this because they have to have, a big week where they show all their new stuff. It's in their DNA.
Yeah. But what happened this year is that 2 days into that big week where they're showing all that stuff, Apple announced the shipping date for the Vision Pro, and everyone started talking about that. And all the options around the Vision Pro and how's that going to work.
But Apple's one of those companies that doesn't need a CES.
Yeah, but I don't think a lot of these big companies need a CES. I think they could just as easily do it the same way Apple does without having to go to big shows and show off dumb products. But
I would suggest Rabbit RI does need a CES because without maybe. CES, you and I never would have heard anything about it. When the Steam Deck came out, that came out at CES. That was first announced there, and everyone was talking about it. Or was that the other place? Doesn't matter. But it was because of I think there is definitely still a place for these big, cons, if you will, conventions. Mm-hmm. I do think there is a place for that. And I loved going to conventions. I really did. I hated the travel. I hated the hotel. I hated the rigmarole around it. But during the event itself, I loved it. I loved going to Macworld Expo. And it brings more of a personal feeling in coverage when it's a person there doing it right. I don't think The Verge or Engadget or any of them are doing it correctly. But regardless of that, I think that the press showing up, good press showing up and actually showing you stuff the way we used to do it at MyMac, I think there's a huge value to that. I really do.
I think part of the problem with CES is that it's so large. Everyone feels like they have to cover what they consider to be the big stories, which is that their editors telling them, well, we need to know about the 7 or 8 things that everyone else is talking about.
Yes.
And then they don't have the time or the interest to do anything else.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So it kind of invalidates the concept in some way. There will be literally thousands of companies who had booths at CES who got virtually no coverage at all. And in that case, what was the point of them being there?
Yeah. Well, they're hoping that they become the hot flavor of the week and everyone covers them.
Well,
that's what they're hoping for.
I know CES is also used for a lot of
buyers
and stuff like that. But I have to wonder whether they could do that without having a show of that type.
I don't know. Some retail is not the way it used to be, so I grant you that. But I don't know. I still think there's a place for it. I just don't know if it needs to be as big as CES because it's a little all-encompassing. When it broke it out, the PCs had their show and Apple had their show, and I think that's probably more useful. But I don't know if look, they're not doing the video game show anymore.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
they've stopped doing that. But I think that's because the video game companies have finally realised that actually doing it the Apple way, where they have these online presentations, gets them more coverage for far less money than going to those shows are.
Yeah.
Nintendo.
But it's a lot easier to show a video game footage on a streaming platform than it is, the newest TVs or toasters or what have you.
And to be honest with you, I reckon the way video games are going to go is that it won't just be showing stuff. I think with the development of streaming technologies, they will be able to offer playability to journalists and to people covering it in the future as when they make an announcement.
Yep. So you talking about video games, you've got a handheld that you wanted to talk about.
I did. I went on a bit of an eBay jag over Christmas, got to be honest. And I spotted something that I'd always fancied having but never wanted to pay what they were charging for it. And I spotted it on eBay going for literally for a song. It was for very little. So I bought it, and I'm quite impressed with it, actually. It's the Atari Blaze handheld. Blaze is the company who makes it, and Blaze are the people behind a lot of the retro systems that you can buy nowadays, and they do a whole load of tabletop and that sort of things as well. And they are also the people behind the Evercade, which is the one where you can put cartridges with about 5 or 10 different games on. So and this was something they did a few years ago, and it's kind of cool looking because plastic as it is, it's styled to look like a retro Atari VCS in a handheld form.
It looks like a very simplified NES controller with the screen in the middle.
Well, yeah, but you see, it's got the wood effect plastic, and the black thing, and the orange buttons. So it kind of has a vibe and ridges on it. So it looks like the original wooden Atari VCS, and it is designed for 2,600 games. That's what it comes with, and it comes with 60 built in. And we all know how these systems work. Is that you turn it on and you get a carousel list of the cartridges titles, and you hit a button, you play them. The interesting thing about this one, they did two versions. They did one with 50 games in, and then they did this one which has got 60 on it, but this one also has an SD card slot. And so you can put the SD card games on the SD card, and you can play everything that they made for the 2600. It runs 5200 games as well, but not well. Some of them run too fast. The emulator's not that great for that. And it runs off 4 AAA batteries. It's tiny. It's the size of a Game Boy landscape aspect. But it's a real nostalgia thing. It's not something you would. I think originally these were going for about £50-60 here.
There's none on eBay that I can see right now. Well, there's one that's not working, and the guy wants $32.95 or best offer.
Right. Yeah. Well, what's the point of buying a not working one? Then you're not be able to get parts for this. But
actually, I think you could probably fix it pretty easily. I bet is this a resistor or a transformer or something popped in it?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's a. It could well be that inside this is a tiny little circuit board that you can't do anything on.
That's not usually what goes bad. It's usually a resistor or something like that that's gone bad, or a bad trace, or if you have like the equipment that I got for Christmas, you can open it up and put it under a microscope and probably fix it fairly simply if you know how to read a voltmeter and
Yeah. But this came out as a result of the Atari Corporation as is now, and their recent drive towards
licensing everything
out. But you know what? It's actually quite a nicely made unit. The controls are okay for a joypad and buttons, and obviously 2,600 games don't really require very much.
The dog agrees.
The dog agrees. And one thing is nice is you can. It has an AV out, so you could actually hook this up to a. With the right cable, it doesn't come in the box, but you could hook this up to a TV if you wanted. It's a very nice little nostalgia system if you remember the 2600.
And who doesn't? Because they're making it again, although a crappy version.
Yeah. Well, that's it. They have a. I've already seen on eBay systems that basically give you a cartridge that you put an SD card in, so you can get all the games.
Well, of course. Yeah, that's not surprising. I mean, that was only a matter of time.
Yeah, as I say, as I think when we talked about the 2600 Plus last time, is that it's the same as one of these. It's running an emulator. It's not hardware re-implementation. So I would say if you want 2600 games, emulate them and don't buy a new system for it just for those.
No, you can play. Well, all you got to do is go to Internet Archive, and they've got most of them there. You can play right on your browser.
And for this, I wouldn't have bought it if it hadn't been the version with the SD card, because I want more games than are available on here.
Internet Archive. Oops.
Yeah, there's
Atari,
on the Internet Archive. There's a thing there that basically has every single 2600 game an archive there.
Yeah, it doesn't say how many there are. Actually, the only one that it's missing is very few, but then it looks like it's got pretty much everything.
Yeah. And this has a lot of this has a fairly decent mix built in, but then there's no Activision games on here because it's an Atari sponsored thing. And one of the other things is that, like for instance, the original Atari Pac-Man, which frankly nobody should play because it's a terrible port, because of the way they did the ghosts in that game using flickering sprites.
Oh, it's terrible.
Well, yeah, but the problem is if you're not doing that on a CRT without the persistence you get from the CRT, what happens is the ghosts frequently just disappear and you can't see them, which makes it quite difficult to play, as you might imagine. So it's not perfect. You'd have thought they'd have kind of caught that and fixed that when they were putting this thing together, but obviously not. But it's very, very much a nostalgia play. But nostalgia sells, and I actually quite like this. It's quite a neat little system.
They've got. I'm looking at the Internet Archive. They've got. I don't know what it's called. Internet Arcade, and they've got just a whole bunch of games. Sega, Namco, Konami.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff you can play right online.
Yeah. I mean, an awful lot of sites that do that sort of stuff now. And if you sat at a computer, obviously you can emulate.
I just went to 1942, and it launches it, and I don't know how to play anything.
Yeah,
I'm sure it has instructions, but it literally launched it right on my screen.
Yeah. But you see, the thing is, you used to be able to get all these sorts of 2600 games and an emulator on the iPhone, which meant you could always have them with you and fiddle around with them if you're on a bus or a train journey and you just wanted to get a quick bit of gaming nostalgia. But all that stuff has disappeared now, and so if you want to have these games on the go, you have to have something to play them on. And as I say, I was quite pleased with this. If you can pick it up for not much money, it's and you remember the 2600 and you want to play 2600 games, it's amazing looking at all of the games that are available. The stuff that came out before close to the crash, it was amazing what performance they could get out of the 2600 compared to the original games.
Well, it took them a while to learn how to program for it and its limitations. But I mean, they're still coming out with games now.
Yeah, but by the end of it, they were doing games that were incredible, considering the very, very ancient hardware it was running on.
The C64 Mini is coming out now.
Well, that's been available for a few years.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the new one?
The new one is for the Atari 400.
Oh, that's what it was. The Atari 400.
The Atari 400, and this was announced at CES, funnily enough, though again I think they could have announced it elsewhere and they would have had enough coverage.
I gotta be honest with you, I've always thought the Atari 400 was probably one of the ugliest.
It was.
I just thought it was an ugly computer.
It was much more capable than many of the computers it competed with on the day.
Yep.
But yes, you're right. It was because the 400 was, well, both of the systems, the 400 and the 800, they were designed to be like a bridge between consoles and computers.
Yes.
So they kind of looked like an Apple II with a slot in the top, and the slot in the top had a cartridge slot, and you could just put cartridges in for people who didn't want to program or load anything. And then they had a basic and a keyboard and all of that for people who wanted to do proper home computing type stuff.
The 400 had the membrane computer. The 800 had an actual.
The 400 was cost reduced, and that's why it had a membrane keyboard. And I don't know. I've never used one, so I don't know whether that membrane keyboard was any good.
No, they're not.
It wasn't like modern touch things, which are capacitive. It actually was resistive, so you had to press down on each thing.
Yeah.
I had the Sinclair ZX81 computer, which had the same sort of thing, and it was hard work. Yes, definitely.
They're terrible.
So this company, this retro company who does these things. So we've talked about the C64 before, and it's like a mini reproduction of the Commodore 64.
Yeah, I've got one,
and it runs an emulator.
You got the upgraded one with an actual keyboard.
I did. I bought that over Christmas because I was playing with my C64 and I thought, you know what, I really want the one with the keyboard. And again, managed to pick one up for not much money. And the keyboard makes a big difference because many of the sort of C64 games I want to play actually have keys on the keyboard.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, because it came with the keyboard. And so, obviously, there were controls on there. So anything slightly more complicated in an arcade game tends to use the keyboard, and it's a lot easier. The advantage of the C64 Maxi, as many people call it, but the one with the keyboard, is it has slightly more powerful hardware in it, and you can get this system. It works on the Mini as well, to be fair. From this, I forget what the guy's name is. He's not English, and his documentation shows that. But it's called PCUAE, and that stands for Project Carousel Ultimate anniversary edition. That's right. And what he's basically done is he's created a separate firmware for these devices that runs off a USB stick and allows you to, and then he loads it with pretty much every game for those systems, and then it means that instead of having the carousel of 64 games that comes with these devices, you've got everything. Every game that was ever made. And then he's also taken advantage of the hardware to the fact that you can switch it into different modes. So on the C64 with the keyboard, you can turn it into an Amiga or an Atari 400 or a couple of other systems, and then also access those games as well. And it's complete. The way he's implemented it is very, very neat in that you put your USB key in and it boots off that. But if you take the USB key out, it just basically reverts back to being a stock machine. So it's kind of nice. It's a little bit slow and clunky, but it does give you access to every single game for these systems that was ever made available, which I would imagine most people buying them would want. So I'll be interested to see. The same company does an Amiga version, the A500, and now they've got this Atari 400 Mini coming this year. And I've seen their roadmap, and their roadmap talks about several other mini and keyboard devices coming over the next couple of years. I suspect the next keyboarded one will be the Amiga again, and they'll do a bigger Amiga 500 with a working keyboard on it. And again, I have the A500, and you really need to have a keyboard on there because most of the Amiga games, again, had controls on the keyboard. The tiny ones you can plug, they've got loads of USB ports. You can plug USB keyboard in and that sort of thing, but if you're kind of plugging in a keyboard, a joystick, a USB, you've then got to do power and everything like that onto this tiny little box that looks like a Commodore 64. You might as well have the big one, to be honest.
Let me pull it up here. I got something. It's been a long time since I talked about it. I'm still part of Amazon Vine, and they offer products for review. And I got the Yumi Digi G2 tablet, Android 13 tablet.
Right.
This costs $86.99, and it's pretty terrible. If I could just put it to sleep, it has two cameras on the back, and what I like is it says AI camera. The hell is that? An AI camera.
It's an AI camera, obviously.
So I just took a picture with the AI camera, and it is awful. Holy shit, what is it doing now? It's downloading updates. So we're just going to turn this thing off. It looks like, what was the HP thing? You remember the HP tablet back in the day?
Oh, yeah, the touchpad.
Yeah, it looks like a touchpad.
Yep.
The screen probably been right at home in 2008, maybe?
Yep.
2009 era. The camera, I was taking better pictures on my G3 iPhone. It is just god-awful.
Yeah, it's $80. They have them here in the UK for £80, with plus a 10% voucher, because why not?
Yeah.
So this is obviously one of these companies that's putting these things together in Chinese factories, down to a cost. You're probably getting some nice Chinese spyware on there as well, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Does this one run Google Play? Is it authorized for that? Mm-hmm. All right, okay, so that's something. I mean, this is the market. The market this is going for are people who might go out and buy like kind of an Amazon Fire, but perhaps don't want the restrictions of Amazon, so they go and buy one like these, And I think there's a place for something like this. If you want to give a cheap tablet to a kid who wants to play games and watch a couple of videos and that sort of thing, then and you're not going to cry too much if they break it or lose it, then there might be a place for this. But it's I mean it's definitely very much the bottom end of the market.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to play with this some more, see what I can do with it.
But here's the thing, right? And this is sometimes what kind of gets to me. I saw an article this morning about the Vision Pro, saying that actually if you look at the cost inflation adjusted price of the original Mac. It was twice the price of the Vision Pro. And they can't draw the comparison. Maybe if the Vision Pro is as transformative as everyone hopes, then it won't. People will, later on will go, oh, maybe it wasn't that expensive for what it delivered. Yeah, but I think it misses the wider point is that if you could take that tablet you have there, right, and send it through a time portal back to your 12-year-old self, yeah, you would think. Apart from the fact, obviously, that back in the early 80s it wouldn't work because there was no internet, there was no Wi-Fi or anything. But assuming you can magically fix that, you're like Doctor Who and you wave your sonic screwdriver over it so it connects to the universal time internet or something, you would be amazed at that tablet about how brilliant it was compared to what we were spending far, far more money on back in the 80s.
Yep.
Right? And if you then said to your 12-year-old self, oh, by the way, this costs $70, you just wouldn't believe it. You would go, no, surely this has got to be like at least $1,000. You go, but it's got cameras on it and it can record video, and you can interact it by touching it, and it's got a really, really high resolution screen where you can't see any of the dots in the pixels. And all of that, and it's got more storage than the Pentagon in this one tablet. Yeah, and you'd gone, and it was $70. You would have been amazed, and yet now we're going, oh, it's a bit crappy for $70.
Yeah. So with that revelation, we're going to wrap up this episode of TechFan. We'd appreciate some feedback. It's the show at techfanpodcast.com, and you can find us, of course, on Facebook. And who cares about the other one, because I don't post there anymore on the TechFan account, just the MyMac account.
I would just shout out, I am on Mastodon, so if people want to find me on Mastodon, I am David B. Cohen at twit.social, I think is my Mastodon address. But
we're on the MyMac stuff on Mastodon too, but
all right, okay. I should follow that then.
Yeah, you should. We'll be back next week with the Geeks Pub. We're going to be talking about Echo. Battlestar Galactica looking like it's getting yet another reboot, and quite a few other things.
I watched an awful lot. I caught up on an awful lot of stuff over Christmas.
Awesome.
So all the things I missed. So there are conversations to be had.
Show notes.
Yeah.
Show notes. See you then, David.
See you then. Bye.